Chrisley Knows best fans know that Todd's formerly estranged son, Kyle Chrisley, rarely posts on social media. In fact, after the whirlwind of controversy in his past, Kyle tends to stay out of the spotlight altogether. Yesterday, show fans did a double take when a rare post from Kyle popped up in their feed. What made the eldest Chrisley son break his silence? Kyle Chrisley certainly isn't invisible to fans of the family, but he is definitely the family member that people have the most questions about. Now 30, Kyle has been in and out of the spotlight for years, dealing with his own non-show-related issues. While he isn't in the show very often now, he was a regular staple in the show's initial season. The show's producers focused heavily on Todd's relationship with Kyle. In the beginning, the show followed the family during a time when Kyle was struggling with substance abuse/addiction. Then 23, Kyle was trying to get his life straightened out so he could get sober for his infant daughter, Chloe. Unfortunately, after a saddening downward spiral, an attempted suicide, a relapse, and Chloe's mother eventually being arrested for alleged Medicaid fraud, things were not looking up for Kyle. Thankfully, Todd ended up being awarded full custody of Kyle's daughter. Todd and Julie have raised Chloe like their own. She has become an integral part of the Chrisley clan and has flourished and grown into a beautiful young lady. After several years of battling addiction, Kyle finally got sober in 2019 and made amends with his father, officially reuniting with his family. While the millennial celeb was getting treatment for his bipolar disorder, a bad reaction to a behavioral med caused him to suffer from suicidal thoughts. Eventually, that struggle led to Kyle trying to take his own life. Thankfully, the attempt was not a success. Just after the incident, Todd posted on Instagram about how overjoyed he was that God came through and saved his son. He accompanied the caption with a photo of Kyle in a hospital bed, smiling, surrounded by the smiling faces of the entire Chrisley family. That was a huge turning point for the family, whose relations with Kyle have only gotten better since. Since getting sober, Kyle has been rebuilding his relationship with his daughter. He has found a new love in his life and married his wife, Ashley Nelson, in March of this year. Overall, despite all of the challenges that he has had to face over the last few years, the young Chrisley appears healthy and happy. While deep in the throes of his addiction, Todd getting sole custody didn't make Kyle happy in the least. He told anyone who would listen that Todd was pulling a stunt to improve his ratings. According to the Daily Mail, Kyle said, "My dad showed no interest in Chloe at all until the show, and until it was pointed out that having a mixed-race child and getting her in all that would be good for his demographic." Now, 7 years later, Kyle seems to have really changed his tune when it comes to his father's motives. And it seems Kyle is taking the initiative to earn himself a place inside his daughter's heart. On Wednesday, Kyle Chrisley posted on Instagram for the first time in over a month. He shared an adorable photo of him and Chloe. Kyle had his arm around his child, and both wore huge, genuine smiles on their faces. The familial resemblance between the two is unmistakable. "It's so hard to believe that you're 9 years old today," Chloe's father reflects. "Time flies, but I enjoy watching you grow into the little lady you are becoming. You are so funny, you make me laugh every time you talk. You are such a beautiful little girl, and I am so thankful for every minute spent with you. Happy birthday, Chloe. I love you so much." Fans of the show exploded the comment section to join in and wish the beautiful 9-year-old a happy birthday. Numerous fans commented on how much she resembles her father, especially when it came to their beaming smiles. As of now, the post has been liked more than 14,000 times by fans and has received nearly 600 comments. Love reading the latest tea on all your favorite reality celebs? Hit our homepage daily for all the latest stories and updates. The dawn light found Kyle Chrisley in a moment of quiet. Everything around felt hushed, suspended in expectation. The usual hum of life, the drone of distant traffic, intermittent birdsong, even the neighbor's routine lawnmower seemed paused as if the world acknowledged something significant about to unfold. A soft golden glow filtered through curtains, painting gentle patterns across the floor. And in that stillness, Kyle felt something shift deep inside. This had been a long time coming. The silence had settled over months like a thick fog, not born of loneliness, but chosen, an intentional retreat from words, dialogue, commentary. Held in place by self-imposed austerity, inner world flourished quietly, unspoken, until this day, this moment when silence needed to yield. It was not that Kyle had nothing to say. On the contrary, the last months had been rich with ideas, realizations, changes, things that shaped his identity, career turns, personal reckonings, family revelations, creative impulses, had all gathered in the unseen folds of his consciousness. They had waited patiently. He had paused listening to his own voice in order to understand it. Today was that special day. The calendar carried weight. A milestone birthday, or an anniversary of some meaningful choice made long ago. Perhaps a commemoration of healing, or a turning point that had quietly altered his path. It was different for him, but still it felt universal. A day when past and future softly converged in the present. Kyle rose from bed with deliberate calm. Each movement was intentional. He walked across the room in silence. He opened a window and leaned out, feeling the morning breeze slip over his skin. It carried bird calls now. Sparrows flitting along fences, the distant caw of crows. There was no rush, no urgency, just breathing and absorbing. Carefully he arranged things on his desk. A journal, opened to a fresh page, a pen with smooth ink, a cup of steaming tea. The aroma of jasmine mingled with the air. He placed a faded photograph beside the journal. A photo of someone significant, maybe a mentor or an old friend whose influence had shaped him. It felt right to include their image, to use it as quiet inspiration. Then he began to write. The words came slowly at first, measured strokes of pen scratching paper. But as he warmed to the flow, sentences unfurled into paragraphs. He recorded observations about his life since the last special day. How the world looked different, how his heart had changed, how things he once took for granted had shifted in subtle ways. He remarked on small joys, sunlight on water, shared laughter in the kitchen, a walk along a wooded trail. Not in a sentimental way, but with thoughtful attention. He reflected on silence itself. How retreating into it had sometimes felt heavy, oppressive, a barrier between him and others. But how, in truth, it had served his inner exploration. He spoke, without speaking aloud, of fear. Fear of vulnerability, of sounding foolish, of being misunderstood. Fear turned to clarity when words were withheld for long enough. And now, on this special day, clarity demanded its own expression. The tea had cooled. He sipped it. The taste grounded him. On the page he described a turning point, an inner decision made in the stillness, a choice to honor authenticity above pretense, the choice to break silence today, not with grand declarations or fanfare. Just honest presence. He paused writing and looked out the window again. The day had brightened, shadows under trees sharpened, leaves in motion cast playful patterns. He felt the living pulse of the world. It called him back from introspection. He moved to his computer and pulled up a blank document. His thoughts transitioned to more structured form, perhaps something public, though not boastful. A blog post, a letter, a reflection shared with those who cared about his journey. In silent affirmation he typed, not sounding a voice, but shaping thoughts. Each sentence built from stillness, meant for transparency, for connection. He considered carefully who would read. He did not imagine seeking attention. Rather, he intended a humble offering. Sharing means bridging internal and external worlds. And he had learned that first walls to tear down were his own reticence, his own protective shell. Half an hour later, he leaned back. The piece was sketched out. It spoke of transformation, of gratitude, of acknowledgement. It made room for mistakes and for progress. It invited others into something of his process, while still preserving the personal core. He felt lighter. He realized that silence had been teaching him, not just through absence of words, but through deep listening to self. He saved the file and closed laptop. His body felt settled, aligned. The morning had ripened into afternoon. Sunlight framed dust motes dancing in the air. A quiet warmth embraced the room. Time had advanced, though it felt still. A subtle impulse nudged him to go beyond written reflection. He walked outside, heading toward a familiar trail. The air was fragrant with greenery and early summer blossoms. He breathed deeply. He noticed textures. The rough bark of trees, soft blades of grass brushing ankles, the sparkle of light on tiny river stones. In deliberate rhythm he walked, letting senses register everything. No soundtrack but nature's own. At a point where the trail curved, he sat on a weathered bench overlooking water. He closed eyes. His mind, briefly restless, quieted again. There was no rush to think or plan, just spaciousness. In that container of silence, his readiness to emerge into speech deepened.